Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Chris. Hey, did you know you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook? Well, you can, and I hope you will consider giving me a follow over there. But for now, let's take a look at some of my favorite flips so far.
All right, this little tray I want to turn into a Lazy Susan. I thought it would be perfect to put like my bottles of vinegar and stuff on it inside the cabinet. So I just want to dress it up a little bit. Give it a little bit of a farmhouse touch, if you will. So for the white paint, I am just going to use linen white from Rust-Oleum. And I'm going to just kind of go around the edges to trim it out. And you can always tape this off. All right, this is the image. I printed the cow off of Creative Fabrica. And then on Canva, I just kind of designed what I wanted my tray to say and look like. But I just printed this out on regular tissue paper on my regular printer. I don't use a laser printer. I don't have one. With that being said, it's going to be important before we start brushing a protector over this image that we protect that ink, and we will get to that here shortly. But I'm just going to cut my image right now just off of this tissue paper so I can lay it down and figure out my placement.
Okay, so I'm just going to take my water pen and I'm just going to go around the places that I want to tear away. Tearing it away versus just cutting it straight with scissors helps it blend into that white paint and make it look more flawless. And I have to tell you, this water pen has been a time saver. It's absolutely wonderful, and I'll link that in the description box as well.
Okay, so I'm just going to take some matte Mod Podge and I'm just going to apply a layer to this surface.
And then most of the times I just take my heat gun and I will dry the surface just to save some time. There are a few times I don't use this heat gun. And those times are usually just when I want the absolute smoothest coat I can get out of that chalk paint. And then I'm just going to grab some parchment paper and place that over the image. Then I'm just going to take my iron and I'm just going to go over that entire image. And I try to work from the center and work my way out. That way I just make sure I get any air bubbles out, just out of habit mainly. And if you struggle to pull that parchment paper off, just wait till it completely cools and that'll make it easier.
Now before I seal this with another layer of Mod Podge, or in this case what I'm going to use is this Art Deco Podge. I like it because it has a sealer in it and it goes on very smoothly, so I do like that for a top coat. But before I do that, because I don't want this ink to smear, I'm going to go ahead and spray it with this matte clear enamel. I'm going to put about 2 coats on it, letting it dry in between. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put my final layer of decoupage. And I'm going to put that all over the bottom. That way I make sure I protect the paint and the image. I'm going to let that dry, and I am going to put another thin coat on top of that just for a little extra finish, because I am going to be having bottles on here that could spill over and drip. Okay, so this is drying down and I'm just going to flip it on over. And I got this Lazy Susan kit. I want to say it came like 4, maybe 6 in a box. I don't remember. I'll look through my Amazon history and I will link that in the description box in case you're interested. But I know they weren't very expensive and you get quite a few of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just, instead of screwing this in, because I'm afraid it's going to go all the way through, I'm just going to use some Star Bond type super glue. I guess it's a type of super glue. It's a multi-purpose, high performance, instant adhesive. I don't have a little spray thing to make it instant, but anywho, I know this stuff works pretty well. I'm going to get some more, but I'm going to get it in the thick because I think that will benefit me a little better. But I'm going to go ahead and clean up this surface before I glue it. And I'm just going to use a little bit of alcohol just to make sure I got any fingerprints off of it that will prevent it from sticking. And I'm just going to wipe it down with a lint-free wipe. And I just use coffee filters. Okay, I'm going to let that dry down. And then on my tray, I'm going to find center. All right, this should be dry. Yeah, that didn't go nowhere. And this project is done. So I really just liked the wood look, the natural wood look. So I wanted to keep that. But what do you guys think? I think it turned out really well. It's going to do perfect for Lazy Susan. All right, I've got this old window frame that I picked up from a thrift store. It cost me $10. Now, I don't know. Do you guys think that was too much? I kind of feel like maybe it was too much. It doesn't even have the glass in it. I don't know. You guys tell me in the comments down below, did I spend too much or is $10 a good price for old window frame? And it's got some nails in it. I'm going to go ahead and remove those. I can see a couple of them here. Okay, I'm just going to take some Simply Green and I'm going to clean this baby up. And even though I'm not going to do anything to the back, I am still going to wipe it down just because that's how I roll. And I also have, it's a 1x6, and a 1x6 actually measures 3/4 by 5.5 is what a 1x6 actually is. But that's what I've got here. And I've just had this sitting in my wood pile for a while. I did not want to buy anything new for this project, and I got lucky. I had most everything here. And what I'm doing is I am going to measure how wide this window is and then trim this piece down. And it's going to serve as a shelf. Okay, and I'm just going to take this to my miter saw and trim that down. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and give this a good sanding. All right, I'm just going to use a finer grit to get it smooth. That was an 80 grit I just used. And this one is a 220. And then I'm just going to take a wet cloth and I'm going to wipe all the sawdust off. All right, and I'm just going to set this here to dry. Okay, so I'm going to take this wood, lay it flat. My wood has a little bit of warpage to it. So I'm going to just have it to where the warpage is kind of bowing downward. This is the back of the window. And I want to join these two pieces here. And to do that, I am going to use some liquid nails and some L brackets. These are the Corner Brace zinc plated finish L brackets. They're 3-inch size. Now I'm going to need 2, maybe 3. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to put one down the center or not. Okay, so I'm going to start by putting the liquid nails down here on the bottom.
This video is participating in the Thrifted Thursday playlist that is hosted by my friends Joanna's DIY Life and Sabrina's Craft Nanigans. I will have both of their links in my description box as well as the playlist link so you can go check out all the other creators.
All right, we've got those L brackets put on, and now we have a shelf. And I think 2 should be enough support. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint it black. And I am going to be using Iron Gate by Heirloom Traditions. It is an all-in-one paint, and it is good for indoor and outdoor use. All right, I've got that painted. I didn't do full coverage. Kind of still want it to maintain its slight rustic look. So we're gonna let that dry. And I'm probably gonna let that dry overnight. All right, so this first one are these spindles that Kendra sent, and we got to do something with those. And the first thing I believe I'm gonna do is this one is a little cockeyed, so I'm gonna go downstairs to my miter saw, and I am just going to make this flush. So after I get those back upstairs, I'm gonna go ahead and sand off some of the rough spots on these spindles, and then I'm going to go ahead and clean up with just an all-purpose cleaning solution. And when I was cleaning, I did notice a lot of bleeding, so I'm going to go ahead and take this primer from Chalk Couture, and I'm going to go ahead and apply. I believe I ended up doing about 3 coats, and that's because one of them was so stubborn it kept wanting to bleed through the primer. So once I get that all dried, I realize you forgot to put your bases on these. So I've got these little wood rounds that I pick up from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to go ahead and drill a hole in the center. I'm going to go ahead and insert some screws, drill a hole in the spindle where I want to screw these on. And when I'm doing this, I like to have that screw poking through the bottom of that bottom piece, the round piece. That way I can twist them onto my spindle and just go back in and tighten it up with my drill, and voila. And then I'm just going to go ahead and apply a coat of primer to those as well. Okay. After I fixed this one, I had it on upside down. I wanted this part on the top, and you'll see why after a bit, but I had to fix that and repaint it. So I'm ready for the crackle. And I'm going to be using the Folk Art Crackle Medium, and the directions just say to apply 1 coat, so that's what I'm going to do. And once that layer of Crackle Medium is dried, I'm going to take the color Americana. That is a DIY cottage color, and I do get all my DIY products from Unicorn Dust Designs. Unless she's out of them and I need it quick, then I will go to the Painted Heirloom, and I have both of those linked in my description box below. Now, when you're applying this stuff, you want to do pretty much 1 swipe, if at all possible, because you see right there, when it hit it a couple times, and it kind of messes it up. It's really weird. So one swipe. You can probably get away with 2, but yeah. But it's very pretty. Look at this crackle. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I found these 2 frames at my local thrift store for 50 cents a piece, plus 25% off. So hey, score there. Never overlook your thrift stores. I know a lot of people love Dollar Tree projects, and I do too. I love a good Dollar Tree project, which I do on my channel, but I never overlook my thrift stores because I also like to upcycle. But I'm just going to go ahead and take these apart, take the glass out, and I want to dress them up. So I have got this IOD trimmings mold, the number 2, and I am going to use the little trimming mold that has the flowers in there. And I'm going to take some air dry clay, and I'm going to roll that around in my hands, mainly to warm it up.
in order to make it more pliable. And then I'm just going to kind of roll it into a little tube, and then that way I can press it down into my mold. And I try to remove as much along the sides because these molds have a little micro edge and it makes it easier to remove any excess. So after I do that, I'm going to take this little chopper that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I am just going to scrape along the top, evening and flattening it out. That way when I glue it down, it has a nice flat surface. And let me tell you, if you don't have one of these choppers, go grab you one because these are very versatile. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay these on top of the frame, and I am going to do little miter cuts. So pretty much just take my chopper at an angle and just trim those off. And you see what I'm doing right here. We're just going to repeat that process on all four corners. And then I'm just going to go ahead and take some Tight Bond Quick and Thick, and I'm going to smooth that out with my fingers and place it on the frame. And once I got that complete and it was all set up and dry, I went ahead and put a coat of white paint on it. Since it didn't need a primer, I just used a white paint, and I didn't like the way it looked because the top of the frame was rough and the sides were too smooth. I just thought it clashed too much. So I'm going to go ahead and take my paint and I'm going to mix it with some salt wash. You can also use baking soda. You can also use sand. Any of that stuff will work. I think sand would actually have looked even better. But I'm going to go ahead and mix that up, and then I'm going to apply that onto the sides and also make sure I get around the inside of the frame so it all looks cohesive. And as I'm putting the paint down, I do tend to do a pouncing motion just to give it a little more texture. And after that white paint is dried, I am then again going to take the color Americana, and I'm going to use a chippy brush, and I am just going to apply that kind of a dry brush manner, just to duplicate that crackle look, because I didn't want to use the crackle medium on this part. And it is a very close appearance. I don't even think you can tell the difference.
Okay, I have got an assortment of knobs. I picked these up at Hobby Lobby. But what I want to do is insert these into here, kind of at an angle, just a slight angle. But the first thing I'm going to do is I went ahead and I marked 4 spots already. Okay, so this one's going to go there, and then I have one over here. And I only want to go so far down, so I'm going to put some tape around my drill bit so I don't go past that. Just going to be about right there. I don't want to go past that. And that's just going to be my reference point. See, I went ahead and put the screw just to mark how far I wanted it to go in. All right, so, and I'm doing that with the tall skinny one. I have plans for the other one, different hardware.
The drill bit I'm using is a 9/64 drill bit, but go ahead and save yourself some time and aggravation and bump it up to a 5/32, I believe. If that's not right, I'll put the information right here on the screen. But I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill all those holes, and then I'll periodically make sure that my knobs are going to fit in there, and when they do, I will proceed. And before I put those knobs in there, I am going to go ahead and take a 1/8 inch drill bit, and I'm going to drill right on the top of that spindle, right in the center, and I'm going to go ahead and do that to the other one as well. And then my picture frames, I'm going to have to pre-drill a hole so I can put a screw through there. And I'm going to use my drill bit to go ahead and do that. I'm going to mark center. And then because it's at an angle, I'm going to go a little bit in front of the hole that I marked. That way it'll pretty much hit dead center. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start by screwing them down by hand until they catch. And then I'm going to take some pliers, I guess is what these are called, a wrench. I can't remember. I do this all the time. But I find if you grip the screw part and then twist the spindle, those go in a lot easier. It's easier on your hands. And I would have used something different, but this was all I had upstairs. And I didn't like the way that the screw part was exposed, so I'm just going to take some twine and I'm going to wrap that around, glue it in place with some hot glue. And I think I might have forgot to mention that when I put those knobs into the spindle, I did squirt some tacky glue into the holes before I screwed those in. And then after I get that twine wrapped around the knobs, I'm going to go ahead and just take a lighter and singe off some of those furry, hairy looking things. And for the other spindle, I am just going to go ahead and drill a pilot hole on all 4 sides of the top. And I'm going to use this hardware that I also picked up from Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to go ahead and screw those in. And this is going to be where she can hang off some necklaces. She can even hang bracelets or rings. Okay, and for one of the picture frames, I've got these cork strips, and I'll be sure to link those in the description box. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to measure and cut these strips so it will fit inside that picture frame, because the width is perfect. And these cork strips make perfect earring holders. And the trick is going to be to get these cork strips to fit in there snugly. So if you happen to cut off too much, you may end up having to use a little bit of tacky glue just to tack it in certain areas so it will stay put. But I cut mine just perfect to where I had to actually squeeze it in there so it's not going anywhere. And then once I got that cork in there, I realized, duh, Chris, you've got to put the frame on top of the spindle first because you're going to be screwing it in and that cork's going to be in the way. So I have to remove it. And once I take it out, I am trying to figure out how in the world I'm going to get this screwed, because I don't have a drill bit that is at an angle. But I went ahead and I did manage to get it screwed in there with my drill. And once I got it in there enough, I went ahead and hand tightened my frame to the spindle. And then when I was trying to tighten it down, that's when I realized this is not going to work. This is nope. So,
okay, I have to go find my tool set my husband gave me. See, honey, I'm using the tools you gave me.
Sorry, I had to leave that in there so my husband knows I use these tools he bought me. But he gave me this little ratchet set, and let me tell you, I am kicking myself right now that I haven't had this upstairs with me this whole time, because these things are handy, but it made it so much easier to hand ratchet those screws down into place, and then I can pop that cork back in there. And I decided I wanted to go ahead and do something with the back, so I've got some cardstock here that I'm just going to cut out. I would have used a black, but I didn't have any black cardstock, so this was the closest color I had that I thought would look okay. And yeah, I just traced that out and put that in there, and I use the little sticky piece on the back of the cork as the adhesive to hold that in place. And let me tell you, that stuff is really sticky, so it worked out perfectly. And once I got that done, I move on to the other spindle, and I just screwed that picture frame on in place just like I did the first one. And this one is where she can just put a photo in. So I just reassemble that with some of the same cardstock and put that together.
Okay, so I got this candlestick all cleaned up, and I just used Dawn dishwashing soap and cleaned it up really well. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a coat of paint with the Fluff by Dixie Belle. Okay, so I've got 2 coats of the chalk paint on here, and now it's time to distress it. Okay, so I'm just going to wet me down paper towel. You can use a baby wipe if you've got that. I don't have any baby wipes that are wet anyway. Mine all dried out. And I'm going to take some of this. Hopefully I don't regret this.
Okay, so my goal here is to give it a wood look, and I'm going to apply that Waverly antiquing wax with a chippy brush, and then once I get that on, I'm going to wipe most of it off, trying to get down there in those little grooves, because I don't want too much of that wax sitting in those grooves. And then I'm just going to work my way up in sections. That way that wax doesn't have time to dry. And now this is my first time trying it this way with just one color paint, or in this case wax, and I just wanted to see if I could do a wood look finish without mixing a bunch of different colors. And this actually turns out very pretty in the end. This video doesn't do it any justice. I hope you guys will give this a try because it's really beautiful, and it looks like it was made like that. And I wanted to show the whole process, even though I did speed it up some. If some of you guys don't want to see the whole process, then feel free to skip ahead. Please don't exit the video, just keep watching. That way you can see how beautiful these projects turned out. And if you agree, give me a thumbs up button and comment down below and let me know which one of these 3 thrift flips was your favorite. So again, just keep watching. So since wood isn't the same color throughout, it has its variances, I went ahead and took some more of that wax and just applied it in different sections. And then I would wipe it away with the dry spot of my towel, and I would do that very lightly. And this is just going to give it more depth and an appearance of looking like wood. I'm going to take a clean chippy brush, just kind of get down in those ridges because I don't want them too dark in those ridges where all that wax is settling into. So I'm just going to kind of wipe that out with this brush, this clean chippy brush. And then taking this clean brush, just buffing out any harsh edges like I got right there, and just using this cleaner brush, it's just going to kind of help buff those out. You got to work quicker than normal because you don't want that paint or that wax to dry before you have a chance to get it looking the way you want. That looks so pretty.
giving it that natural wood look, and I love it. A lot of times I feel like I have too many white things in my house, so I got to find a way to contrast that. Now I'm just going to take what's left on the wax brush and not wipe it off, just kind of blend it in with my dryer brush. And I think that's perfect, so I'm going to stop right there. All right, so I've got that finished, and now I'm going to accessorize it. And I have got one of these that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, the floral foam in this kind of shape here. But I am going to cut it in half. I might need something a little sharper. Smooth that out. All right, and this actually fits in this candle cup really perfectly, so don't need to use any glue, and that way I can change it out as I feel fit. And I've been contemplating on how I want to decorate it. I have a candle that I do want to sit on top of it. I'm going to cut some of these lavender stems off.
And once we got those stems clipped off, I'm going to put them into the foam, as you can see right here, and just stick them in, trying to avoid sticking them in on the bottom. And what I mean by that is if they go into the bottom, then you're not going to get a very stable placement and it'll be wobbly. So you just kind of want to push them straight inward. And I'm just trying to space them out as evenly as possible. That way we can go back in and fill it in. It just makes it a little bit more pleasing to the eye. And I did end up using almost 3 lavender bundles.
My mom had I've got some of these darker lavender ones. I do not know where she got them from. My guess would be Temu, but that's just a guess. But they're a darker purple, so I think I'm going to go ahead and use some of these as well.
And I'm just going to stick those in between the other lavender pieces just to give it a little variation in color. And once I get all of those in there, I don't believe I show it, but I will kind of fan those branches down just so they appear like they're hanging a little bit more.
Okay, so to disguise some of this foam, I'm just going to use some reindeer moss, and I'm going to hot glue some of the reindeer moss onto the foam. I've got my finger protectors, so I'm going to go ahead and take that out, and then just kind of around the edges here, hot glue some of that on there. And I'm going to get me a silicone mat, and I get to use my brand new hot glue gun that I got since mine had blown up on my last video. So this is my very first stick. I'll just kind of trim some of this off. Any that's sticking out too far. Oh, just be careful. Put your finger protectors on. Use a silicone spatula because that glue is hot. All right, and set that back on there. Push it in. Oh, that Spanish moss is hiding that floral foam, and you will see it better in the final reveal, which is coming up here in just a second. But this one is complete. This color is Americana, and I've not even opened them yet, so let's do that. I'm going to set that aside for a second. I don't have any kind of slick stuff to make a smooth surfaces kind of sticky to the paint. So I'm hoping using some fine grit sandpaper is going to help. So I'm just going to go over this.
But after painting it, I really think you could skip this step. Just use your best judgment.
I'm just going to take some rubbing alcohol and I'm just going to spray this down. All right, so it says to stir the paint because this paint does have a sealer in it. And I am definitely expecting this to need 2 to 3 coats, because it's such a liquidy paint. And I know that was the case with the Heirloom Traditions. That color is gorgeous.
Okay, and I've got some small brushes that I'm going to use to go around the bottom of that rim. And I am not going to paint the rim itself.
I love how this paint just kind of glides. Oh, I just love that. Now I am just going over this very lightly because this paint does not need a lot of pressure. All right, I'm gonna see how well this dries down with my heat gun on low setting.
As I was drying it down, I was just looking to see if it cracked like chalk paint, and there was no cracking.
All right, and I'm just gonna apply this second coat.
And once I got the back dried, it's time to work on the front, and I'm just going to do the same exact process, making sure not to paint around that top rim. And if I did get any on the rim, I would just take a clean paper towel and just kind of scrape it off of there before it had a chance to really dry in.
Okay, so this is after 2 coats. Oh, I am loving this color. Now I'm gonna say this back could use an extra coat, but I think the front side looks good. Okay, that is dry. It is looking absolutely gorgeous at this point in time. Next, I'm going to test out the rub-on transfers from IOD. And I picked up this packet from Vonda at the Painted Heirlooms. And I will put her link in the description box. And I will also put Sammy at unicorndustdesign.com, her link in the description box. So this one is called the Flora Parisiensis. I don't know how to say it. I'm not French. There it is. And I fell in love with these flowers right here. So this is what I'm going to work on.
And for a minute there, I was thinking that the image might be too big, so I just decided to go ahead and just cut it out. And when I cut it out, I did tend to get a little close to the image and kind of laying it back down just to see where I can cut those stems off. And once I got that all trimmed out, I just peel off the back, and when you lay it down, you just kind of want to hover over the top of where you're placing it, and don't make contact until you are ready to commit, because it is sticky. And I kind of started where it was rounded because I wanted that image to kind of go up on the curved edge. And so I would also make some little slits to help that image lay where it curved and where it kind of rounded at the top of that tray.
And I have fingernails, so I'm just kind of rubbing them into there with my fingernails.
And then the transfers come with this little plastic stick to help you rub them into the surface. So that's what I'm using here. And I just work my way down to the bottom of the tray. And these transfers were just very easy to work with. And I absolutely love how this tray came out. It is my favorite today, and you guys just let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. I really want to know which one ends up being your favorite, and I appreciate all the comments that I get. I try to answer every one of them. I do read them all, and again, I love reading your guys' comments. It really keeps me moving along. And once you get that transfer pulled off, they do recommend that on the back side of that transfer sheet where it's nice and smooth, that you just go over the image, making sure it's burnished in really well. And just when I thought I was finished, I grabbed some gold leaf rub and buff, and just in a few spots, I added some of that gold, and then I would kind of brush very lightly around that rim, just allowing a little bit of gold to show through.
Now I'm just going to seal it, and I think that is absolutely stunning. Gorgeous.